Hello, everyone. I'm JEAN-CLAUDE Beyond Mystic, and welcome to today's War Correspondent Report. Today, we are going to be tying the dots here in the narrative rollout of the Patrick Byrne book, the Julian Assange liberation, and of course, Trump and the White Hats. With me to discuss all of these amazing topics is the one and only KERRY Cassidy. You can find her work at projectcamelotportal.com. She's also the author of The Rebel Gene, which you can find also on Amazon. KERRY, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have this conversation with you tonight. KERRY, thank you for being here. You look great and in good spirits as always. We're going to have a nice conversation tonight. This leads into, or stems from, rather, a conversation you and I had a couple of days ago on the phone. We kind of talked about some of our disappointments with respect to the rollout, the narrative, the limited hangouts that we're seeing, and how people might be discouraged from actually looking for themselves. And this is kind of why we wanted to have this conversation. I'll get into that in a moment. I just want to let the audience know we're triple casting right now on YouTube, X, and on Rumble. We're going to be dropping the YouTube feed in about 5 minutes or so here. So if you look in the description box below, guys, you'll see the link to come and join us on Rumble for the No Holds Barred conversation. Let me bring that back down to the live chat. All right. So KERRY, as I just mentioned there in the introduction, it very much feels like we're entering this new phase of the war, and the struggle for control of the narrative is probably paramount. We're seeing the big titans fight for that control. To some extent, in the conversation you and I had on the phone the other day, it appears that that control has been lost, or somehow it's ran away from some of the White Hats, and they're trying to stop it, slow it down, bringing it back under a certain narrative and limited hangouts. Your first thoughts on that, your perception of what's going on right now, and some of your frustration, perhaps, if you want to share with the audience, as to why perhaps it feels like we're being manipulated, and maybe there's a strategy for us to get out from underneath that control. KERRY, what are your first thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I have lots of thoughts. I read Patrick Byrne's book, and actually had read another book that he kind of posted online earlier. That was maybe a year ago or something. So I have been watching him and his work as much as possible. My general comment about the sort of there's a desire to control the narrative for humans in general. Okay. And that's the White Hats, and that's the Dark Hats, and that's the mainstream media. Okay.
Mhm.
Wherever you want to place them.
Right.
And so, in fact, case in point, I just got some information from the real police chief, who is the former police chief of Colorado. Go figure. He's like totally awake and he's working a little bit, I guess you might say, behind the scenes with Alex Collier and other sources. He has come forward. He's actually told me he's publishing it right now. So I think I'm at liberty to say, maybe I'm not supposed to say it on this segment. Do you want me to hold it off? Because
Yeah, hold off on that right now. I just really want you to speak to some
then
of
I'll
your
just say, I think that we need real disclosure, and we need to make sure that we're on it. So in the past, the way we always thought about journalists was that they were going to break the story. They were going to get to the bottom of the story. And of course, that has all gone by the wayside over the years, because as mainstream took over and was taken over, less and less truth came out. All right.
Mhm.
We still get bits and pieces. And of course, WikiLeaks, case in point, was always very cutting edge.
For sure.
And interestingly, Julian Assange visited Camelot back in the day and was one of our fans. So I'm proud to say that. Wonderful, wonderful man, incredible intellect. And the things that they've done to break through to the truth, I totally admire. So I do have some things to say about that on the other side.
Okay.
Anything else you want me to say, or are we already done with this section, or what goes on?
I think we can add safely here still for the YouTube audience. This is not happening in a bubble. Of course, we're leading up to the election, and part of our, I guess, concern with some of the stuff that's coming out, we can see the rollouts now. We can see what appears to be a series of death punches towards the Democratic Party and the hangers-on that still believe that this corpse is running the country. But at the same time, we're not having the true discourse in depth of what we need to do as a country to repair some of those problems. So, in my view, and in some of the views of our audience reading their comments over the last number of months, it very much appears that the narrative that is being put out now and the fight for the narrative is really just to put the new guy in place, but to let pretty much everything else in the same kind of position without rocking any boats. And that's frustrating to a lot of people, a lot of truthers, a lot of patriots who are saying, well, okay, yes, that would probably be better of a scenario than the one we have now. But if we're just going to do that, meet the new boss, and that nothing is going to change in between, and that we can't really have conversations about real things and real justice, then it's a problem. We're not actually solving any problems. Your thoughts on that? Like the fact that it seems to be a limited hangout here just to change the seat of power, but not really to change the defects of the system itself, Kerry.
Well, I think that's a very loaded statement. I think that we have to give the White Hats some credit here because whether you pay attention or not, and I know it's difficult, 107 has been dropping some truth
Mhm.
all along,
Mhm.
and some great truth, actually.
Mhm.
But in between that, he's doing his religious stories that are distracting and frustrating for some of us.
Mhm.
Some, I guess, just love that stuff. I don't. I think there's
Yep.
tons of disinfo there. So tucked in and away around his truth, he's doing that. So I think that is confusing the issue.
Mhm.
I think that he's treading a very difficult path. He's a military guy. They are trying to be secretive, which that's a whole discussion in itself. How secret can you be when you both use AI? You both follow the same playbook in terms of tricks of the trade and
Right.
Zen of the art of war, or whatever it's called. You know what I'm saying? In
Yeah.
other words, they're following the same playbook now, and they do a lot of the same things. And yes, some of the more diabolical things are initiated by the dark side, but then how much mitigation is really happening on the side of the light? And are they even capable? I mean, maybe their military isn't up to the speed.
Right.
We don't know. So I'm just saying that I can't answer that with just a yes, no answer because we are hopeful that more disclosure will come from the good guys and that the closer we get, let's say, to Trump coming back in office officially, then hopefully truth will come out.
Right.
And there are some twists and turns in this road. So the
I'm.
White Hats are working to get the truth out, but they're doing it in a backhanded way. And they're
Mhm.
also doing it while in hiding, which is another, I don't know, sleight of hand, you might
Mhm.
say. And
Mhm.
so we're really in this game, and the Q drops is a case in point as well, because the
Mhm.
Q drops do the same thing. They're
Right.
giving you clues, they're not telling you exactly. I tend to be a straight shooter, so of course I'm not thrilled with that. Um, I did follow Q earlier in the earlier days to see if there was something there. For me, coming where I come from and doing this 20 years with whistleblowers from above top secret, etc., it wasn't earth shaking in any way for me.
Right,
But
but it
I
was
do
it
know
was
it was
granted,
for
it was a
others.
psychological operation, and it was designed in such a way to wake up some people to even ask the
Yes.
questions and to start digging,
And people
and in
that
that respect, it was
liked
very
the
successful.
game, if you're an online person and you like following those clues. But there are people in our midst who are still patriots who are not online people and don't like those games.
Right, right,
I'm
for
just
sure,
saying.
for sure. It's a different part of the population. Now, I agree with you with the conversation here and the narrative that seems, or the control of the narrative that seems to be being played out with the white hats. On one hand, it's frustrating, but we don't always understand the reasoning for it, and we understand also the games that are being played in the background that makes it very difficult to be transparent. That being said, like I had really had a good conversation with Juan in this interview. We did this 3 hour marathon. Some of the questions he answered quite directly. There was a lot of great information. Some are a little bit more opaque by his own description, but having to do perhaps with ongoing operations, and we understood why he needed to do that. I was impressed though with this particular interview because like you, I had kind of been disappointed in a previous interview he had done early in the year from or coming from Antarctica, where he was suggesting that having the conversation about ETs was kind of whimsical and silly, that the real problem was just a bunch of, you know, breakaway humans or Nazis in Antarctica. And I did call him out on that. And he did accept the fact that, yeah, there's a bigger context, but right now we needed to be focused on this particular thing. So I have to give him credit for being in that interview, being there so long with me and answering some of those questions. So guys, I think this is it for the YouTube feed. We've already maybe triggered some of the keywords there. Let me bring the link back down for you guys in the link now if you want to come and join us on Rumble now for the rest of the conversation.